Alright, villagers, let's talk trains for a little bit. Seems like a lot of people have questions about trains. What's the best kind to use? What scale to use? So, I mean, those are good questions, but there's really no good answer for any of them because none of the village stuff will be really to scale of any of the trains. The trains will be in scale with the track. The trains would be in scale with people that you could buy for these train sizes, but they're not really in scale to the buildings, and even the people and things like that are really not in scale to the buildings for the buildings themselves. But basically this comes down to preference. What do you like? What's your budget? And how much room do you have to set everything up? So Lemax, they have this trolley that they use, and it just comes with this basic plastic track, and some of you probably already have this piece. I think it's called the Spooky Town trolley or something like that. But anyways, it's just battery operated. This little shell pops off, it's got some batteries in there, and then it rides back and forth on this track, this plastic track. And then they also make a train version of this track where the train will just run around. It's got batteries and it'll run around on a track as well. And with this one here, what it'll do is, if you'll notice on the track, it's got these little circles, and that's actually a magnet. So when it approaches the magnet, it'll stop, and the magnet triggers a mechanism on the inside of it, and it makes it change polarity for the batteries, and the motor will run the opposite direction. So it'll run off down that way until it hits another magnet, and then it'll come back and forth and back and forth. So, I mean, it's okay. It works pretty good. It's got some sound. It's got some lights. You're basically limited to how much space that you have and how often you want to change the batteries. But that's really about the basics of the Lemax stuff. They don't really have any powered type of things that I'm aware of. A village trolley that you see sometimes with Department 56 is similar. It has all of the components are on the inside of this trolley car, and it rides back and forth on this track right here, which is powered by a little DC power pack that you can Bachmann has them, but it puts out like about 12 volts DC, I think, to the track. And it's just kind of like that old train set that you had when you were a kid. You turn it on, there's DC voltage to the track, and the trolley will move. Now in this case, what happens is the trolley itself has these little bumper pieces on them, and it pushes back and forth like that. So when it gets to the end of the track, it runs into like a little bumper piece, and when it does that, it pushes against this piece right here like that, or like this end, and it'll change the polarity of the motor on the inside of the trolley track, or on the inside of the trolley, and then the trolley will go the opposite direction. So if you put it on the track and then you turn on your power supply, and it'll drive, and then when it hits the bumper, it'll go down to the other end, and it'll hit the bumper, and it'll come back, and it'll just do that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all day long. No batteries or anything like that. You can get some curved pieces of track. They have these re-railer tracks to keep it from getting off the rails. Plus, it's also a quick, easy connect for the power supply. When you plug it in, it's just this little flat tabs. It just plugs right in. Super simple, easy to do, right out of the box. Anybody can set it up. Comes with a little power adapter that goes for this unit right here. You turn it on, gives you a power indicator. You can change the direction of the trolley or whatever you're trying to run. Just be careful when you do that to make sure that it's not the opposite of what the bumper is on this side. Otherwise, it'll be running opposite polarity, and it won't change directions because it'll run into the bumper when this is already pressed in, so it's not going to do anything. It's just going to sit there. So that's that one. Bachmann also makes another variation of this trolley that runs very similar, but instead of having this bumper action back and forth, it's kind of like the Lemax trolley. It has a sensor on the inside of it, and it uses this special, what they call Easy Track, but it's for that particular trolley. So rather than using a mechanical function to change the polarity of the trolley, it uses an electrical function. And this track can be kind of pricey. If you have a large layout and you want to run a bunch of this, you can get all kinds of extra pieces of it. It is a little expensive, and you'll notice it has like this unit underneath here with a bunch of wires and stuff sticking out of it, how it's connected. These pieces over here, when you get this Bachmann, this track, this Easy Track, it doesn't have any of that underneath it. It's just empty underneath it like that. So it's a lot cheaper, and that's because it's running mechanically. There's no requirement for powering or for changing the power to the car, because it changes direction mechanically. With this Easy Track, with this one here, it changes direction electrically. And I'll put some links on the post of the video so you can get to some of the different types of products, and you can see how much they are and where you can buy them from. So that's that one. That's the Bachmann Easy Track with the electronic direction change. The system that I use is this NCE Power Cab system, and you can get this online. You can buy it. It's like a couple $100, between $200 and $250. You can find them, and it basically comes with this power controller right here, and it comes with this little connector piece right here that you would connect these wires. You get some longer wires, and you'd connect those. You'd solder them to any track that you want. You can use this Easy Track if you want, not the one with this stuff underneath it. You'd have to use the ones without that underneath it. So it'd be the ones that are hollow underneath, and you can just run these wires over, and you can just solder them right to these little tabs right here, or you can cut one of these wires and wire them up, and it'll work just fine. The difference with this system is that this system runs off of AC voltage, and the trains, each one of the trains themselves, have a chip inside of them. It's programmable. So whenever you run the train, it's running from the controller to this, not just by the fact that you're turning a power knob up and down. So like for this little unit here, it's kind of it doesn't have any sound or anything like that. It'll just run. When you run the power up on it, it'll just take off and just kind of run down the tracks like such. You notice it doesn't make any noise. Then you can, on here, you just change the direction of it, and then it'll go backwards like such. And the cool part about it is, like, this is programmable, so this engine would have a number. For instance, this one here is, I just programmed it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can program it right with this. Some of them, when they come from the factory, they're all factory is 3. So when you would select 3, and they will all run on number 3. But you don't want to do that if you have multiple units, because you can't discern which one's which. So you program them with an individual number. The other thing that's cool about these is that, like, you can turn the headlight on and off. Again, this one doesn't have sound, but you know, it's just a little extra added feature that's really kind of cool. And then when you change direction, it'll go back. Some of these are programmed. They'll have a light in the back too, so when you change the direction, the front light will go out and the back light will come on. So you can get these little units like this. They're called DCC, which stands for Digital Command and Control. And that's how you know it has a chip on the inside of it. And you can get them, you don't have to do any installation yourself. You can get them straight out of the box, just like this from Bachmann. And they work pretty good. These will actually work on DC tracks as well. They'll only go one direction. but they will work on there. As far as I know, I don't really use that, so I have tried them before and just to see what would happen, and I can only get it to go one direction. So I'm guessing that's probably how it goes, but I could be wrong. So if anybody has any information on that, please feel free to correct me. One of the units that I like to use is this little unit right here, because it can take tighter curves. That one that I showed you before was a great unit because it was you could take it and run it on really small circles. This one's cool though because it has sound in it. You can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it through the video, but right now the steam is flowing. You can hear the sound. And then what you do is I have this one programmed as engine number 2880. And all you do is you select the locomotive 2880 and hit enter. And now it'll talk to this unit right here. So you can turn the headlight on if it's not dirty. You can blow the whistle. Sometimes these headlights are just sensitive to attract dirt. They don't work very good. But well, there it goes. In this case, the headlight will come on once it starts to move. So some of these they'll just turn on. Some of them they'll turn on once it starts to move because of how it's programmed. But if you'll listen to this one, I'll push it back here. It's got the headlight. I've turned the headlight on, so when it starts to move forward, and you'll hear it, it'll start sounding like a steam locomotive. The headlight comes on. Sometimes those headlights are a pain in the butt. That one might just have a loose connection, or it might just be dirty. But you can hear the sound. You can hear the whistle. You can make, and then when you stop it, it makes cool sounds with the brakes and stuff like that. It's got a little bell function. You can make the bell ring. So these are really cool little locomotives. I like them, like I said, because they can take sharper turns. So if you're kind of limited on space, these will work pretty well. This is the one that I showed everybody in the video from before. So it's called a 460. The reason why they call it that is because these are your main drive wheels. So then you can see there's 6 of them. And then there's a set of 4 steering wheels, or not really steering wheels, they kind of guide on the train. And then some trains have these kinds of sets of wheels behind them. But since this one doesn't have any, so it's got 4 wheels in the front, 6 drive wheels, and no rear wheels behind it. So when you put it on the track, this one actually powers up with a separate coal tender. They plug together, and that's where the sound actually comes from. So that's that one. The next one is this big beast right here. This is the engine from the O-Scale Lionel Polar Express. And it's a pretty hefty engine, weighs a lot, and it runs on this type of track right here. It can also run on the tube style track, but this is the easy track that you can get, and then what they call a 3-rail system. It works off of AC voltage, but you can also have some of these older units that will run off of DC voltage. It just depends on what they are, what they come. These can come. You can get this in a boxed system all ready to go, and you can just take it out. You plug it in. It'll run in a circle. You've got your train, and it's pretty basic. It'll take up maybe like a little 4-foot by 4-foot or a 3-foot by 3-foot table area, and it'll just run in that circle if that's what you want. Very loud running on this type of road bed, just because it's hollow plastic. It's extremely noisy. A lot of people don't like these 3 rails. A lot of people do. Some of the older guys like them just because they're, it's kind of what they were used to from a kid. But again, so you can see the size comparisons. That's the O-Scale Lionel, and this is what they call an ON30, which is, it's similar in size body wise, like for the cab and everything, of the O-Scale, but it actually runs on HO scale track. So these are all ON30s, just because they kind of, in my opinion, they fit really nice with the Villages. This is an actual HO engine. So in real life, this would be huge compared to these. It would be, probably like that big. If it was an O scale engine, it would be a pretty good size. So a lot of people will say, well, I like to use the HO scale. Again, it's all comes down to your personal preference. It also comes down to your budget, and it comes down to how much room you have to set everything up and how much you're willing to put effort into these trains. They do take some time to get them set up. You have to wire things together. You got to keep your tracks clean. You have to, you're constantly dealing with, if they derail, you got to make sure you can get to them on your layout. So there's a lot of different factors that are involved with that. One of the things that people are concerned about too a lot is the scale of the trains to the buildings, which even, like I said, the people themselves, this is a Limax or a Department 56 building, the people themselves are really not to scale. I mean, if she was to scale to this building, trying to get into this door, she'd probably be like 8 feet tall. So if you compare her to a train, she's still kind of big compared to that train. Even to the Lionel train, the comparison really, it's kind of closer to the building. But as far as people goes, she's still pretty big compared to what would actually be the correct scale. So again, with the buildings themselves, there really is no scale per se. It just depends on what you like, what your budget is, how much room you have to set things up. So I hope that helps out. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer them. But that's all I have for my train demonstration. So hope you guys enjoyed it.